G'day humans, Chris Stead from Finder here. Today I'm comparing the original Nintendo Switch with the new Nintendo Switch OLED model. Now, this comparison is going to be relevant to all gamers out there, but I'm going to take a special point here to also offer some specific advice for parents, such as myself, who have kids. I've got 3 young kids who love their Switch, so you guys can make the best decision for you. Now, what I don't have, unfortunately, on me at the moment is a Nintendo Switch Lite model. However, I will throw that into the comparison as well, and to represent it, I have this mushroom. Let's find out which Nintendo Switch is the right one for you to buy. So let's start by exploring the differences between the normal Nintendo and the Nintendo OLED. Now, the big surprise is probably going to be that they've got exactly the same CPU, same GPU, same RAM, same battery life. They play all the same games. In fact, I've loaded the exact same game onto both these systems and started them at the exact same time, and they're both open at the exact same speed. Get to things just as quickly. So you're probably wondering, well, what's the point then? What's the difference? In fact, the difference isn't even with the Lite. The Lite has a slightly smaller battery life. These ones last 9 hours each. The Lite only lasts about 7 hours, or that's the theoretical maximum. You'll never get there, trust me, but that's the difference. Slightly longer battery, otherwise all 3 of them are exactly the same inside. However, there are some subtle differences, and as you can probably guess, it involves the screen. Yes, that's right gamers, the key difference is in the title. The Nintendo Switch OLED has an OLED screen. Now, as you can probably see, or hopefully see, the difference is quite substantial. The original Nintendo Switch over here has a bit more of a washed out feel to it, while this one over here is a lot more vibrant, a lot deeper color range, a lot deeper blacks, just pops a lot more. You can probably, or you may be able to tell that this is a 7-inch screen over here that takes up much more of the footprint or the chassis. And over here on the original, it was a 6.2 inch. The old Lite down here, the mushroom, it's a 5.5 inch. So you can see that, get an idea for the difference of the sizes. But the actual footprint is not too dissimilar. Slightly bigger on the OLED, but it's marginal. You're really not going to notice it at all. So that's the key difference. Now, there's also a few more other differences inside of it. The OLED model has a 64 gigabyte internal storage, while this one has a 32, the original, and the Lite has a 32 as well. Now, that's great. It's a big benefit. Well, it's not a big benefit, but it is a benefit, but it's probably not going to be enough. You're probably still going to buy a micro SD card and dump that up. I've got a 256 gigabyte or something in this one. In fact, I've got about 4 of them. But anyway, so that's one of the other major differences. You also notice quite a substantial difference with the kickstand. So the kickstand on the OLED model goes the whole way across, much more stronger, and it can go at any kind of whatever is suited to you for when you set it up in tabletop mode. Whereas the original Nintendo Switch has just the one kickstand over here, and it kind of really only has the 2 options. So not quite as stable, as you can see. Outside of that, you're not really looking at too many differences. This is reportedly, the Switch OLED model is reportedly got an improved stereo and sound system. Sorry, the song's just come on, I'll turn that down for you. So it's got better audio, but I can't hear the difference. And as you can see, I'm playing exactly the same game here on both of them, and you put them on both sides of your ears. Is it better? I can't tell. And the actual docking stations are slightly different. Inside this one there is a LAN port, so you can connect it wired, which is kind of handy if you've got your TV a long way from your router, but you can run a cable up there. So that is a bit of a use case for that. So those are the differences between the Nintendo Switch normal and the OLED. And I encourage you to go across and check out the article that I put in the description below, because I've got a full table of every single stat compared, not just to these 2, but also of the Lite. So let's quickly touch on price. Here in Australia, the new OLED model goes for about $540. The normal Nintendo Switch, or the original Nintendo Switch, goes for about $430, and the Lite goes for about $300. So there is a reasonably substantial price difference between them, and that's going to weigh into the end of this video, where I start telling you about which of these is best for which use case. Now, the final ingredient in working out which of the switches is best for you is working out how you're going to play it, because there are 3 different modes that you can play the Nintendo Switch. Now, when it's set up like this, you can use it in TV mode, where your cable, your HDMI cable, connects to the back of the dock, and you play on your TV like you've done with Nintendo consoles for years. Alternatively, you can take it out altogether and play it in handheld mode, which is how you might have played your Game Boy or your DS in the past. And finally, there's tabletop mode, which is where you set it up, take off your controllers like so, and you can play like this, where you've got your Switch effectively acting as a small TV or a monitor, and you can play with this, or you can play with one of the Pro controllers, whatever. And the idea of tabletop mode is you can rock up to school or to a friend's house or whatever, set it up in tabletop mode like this, whip off the controllers, and your friend can have this one, you can have this one, you can sit there and play Mario Kart together. Now, in terms of the way that I think people will mostly use it, I think tabletop mode is probably the least likely way that most people are going to consistently use their Switch. It's a nice feature, it's cool, you might use it every now and again, but it's hardly going to be the majority use case. So we're probably going to leave it for the most part alone. I think that most adults are probably going to play in console mode, which we've got over here, because in console mode you can really just sit back on your couch, have a beer, play a game like you've done for your entire life. I think there's a subset of adults that will absolutely use it in both modes, where they will potentially play at night on the TV and then take it in handheld mode and continue playing while they're commuting to work, for example. And there's an even smaller subset of adults which will play predominantly in the handheld mode and won't play at home on the TV at all or very rarely. For kids, my experience with my 3 kids, and my kids are 10, 8 and 6, I've never seen them even use tabletop mode. However, they have used 50-50, I reckon, on handheld and TV mode. So when we're at home, they predominantly play on the TV, play together on the TV, a lot of couch co-op games and couch multiplayer games on the Switch. It's what's so awesome for families and kids. However, when we go on trips or travel, they use it in handheld mode. If the TV's been used for another console or to watch TV, they'll pick up the Switch and take it into their bedroom and play with it. And frequently they'll just wake up in the morning, sneak the Switch into their bedrooms and play it in handheld mode and then get in a heck of a lot of trouble. So those are the various use cases, and what I've seen are the most likely ways that the different type of humans out there in the world will use the Nintendo Switch. So let's go through which Switch you should buy. Now, if you're going to predominantly play on the TV at home in the TV mode or console mode, then I absolutely suggest getting the normal Nintendo Switch, the original Nintendo Switch. Now, the reason I say that is because the big advantage of the Nintendo Switch OLED model is its amazing, beautiful screen. So if you are not going to play in handheld mode, you're not going to get the most out of this screen, and therefore it's a bit of a wasted money. It's not worth doing. Just be careful that you do not get a Nintendo Switch that is older than 2019, because the earlier Nintendo Switch models were slightly worse off for battery life and a few other bits and pieces, and they redid it and give it a bit of a rejig in 2019. Now, if you intend to spend a lot of your time playing the Nintendo Switch in handheld mode, then I suggest you get the OLED model for sure. Because yes, it's definitely a bit more money, an extra $100 or so, but the screen really doesn't make a difference in this mode. It's a much more immersive experience. So you're going to get the value there. If you're playing in handheld mode, I reckon even if you only play in handheld mode 35-40% of the time, it's probably still worth switching to the OLED model, because you get a big benefit out of that. If you happen to be one of those gamers that thinks they're going to play a heck of a lot in tabletop mode, I would also suggest the Nintendo Switch OLED, because the kickstand here is definitely far superior. So you will get a benefit if you're using in tabletop mode, but I doubt there's very many of you. So what then about the Nintendo Switch Lite, represented here by this beautiful, tasty looking mushroom? The fact is that the Nintendo Switch Lite's use case has dwindled significantly since the OLED model came out. That's because it's primarily positioned as a handheld only mode. In fact, you can't even dock it to a TV, it doesn't supply that option, and you can't take the Joy-Cons off, so therefore you can't play it in tabletop mode, it doesn't even have a kickstand. Therefore, it's only for handheld gaming. And as I've just explained, the OLED model is definitely the best option for handheld gaming because of the much bigger screen, especially bigger than the Lite, which only has a 5.5-inch screen LCD versus a 7-inch OLED screen. It's chalk and cheese, right? You're getting this one. So therefore, the only people that Nintendo Switch Lite could possibly be for are people who are playing 100% in handheld mode and are so strapped on budget that they just can't get to the OLED range, because you can still play pretty much exactly the same games. There's only a handful of games you can't play on the Lite, and they're the ones that demand that you take off the Joy-Cons because you can't take off the Joy-Cons. But other than that, the handheld Nintendo Switch Lite has definitely lost a lot of its place in the market, and the price does represent that. So what then should parents buy for their kids? Which Nintendo Switch? Look, if you're not going to play it all yourself, I'm going to be a little bit controversial here. I'm going to say get a normal Nintendo Switch secondhand. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because I don't think kids are really going to pick up on the benefits of the OLED screen as much as adults are. Those of us with decaying eyes and who know what is out there are going to definitely reap the rewards, whereas kids, they just don't care. They don't care. You know, like my kids have the option of playing both and they don't really care which one they use. They don't. So you don't have to really invest full on an OLED model. And I've seen Nintendo Switch, normal versions of the Nintendo Switch, go for around that 250, even less, 200 or so mark on the likes of eBay and so forth. So you have the capacity then to buy a normal Nintendo Switch, which could possibly come with an extra controller and a few games because you're buying it second hand, right? Get a Nintendo Switch, use that extra money to maybe get Nintendo Switch Online, to potentially get a bigger micro SD card so you can have more downloadable on there. And definitely if you've got more than one kid, you're going to want a second controller or potentially the Pro controllers so they can play at the same time, sit on the couch at home. So if that was me, if it's me buying, I'm going for the Nintendo Switch normal version, secondhand, if I'm buying predominantly for the kids and not for myself. And as I mentioned before, just be wary of the fact that the 2017 or 2019 and earlier Nintendo Switch models do have a lower battery life, and there was a little tweak, a little improvement in the model numbers at 2019. So just be aware of that, because if you're looking at between a 2019 model or earlier than 2019 model and a 2021 model or something like that, and you're comparing the prices on eBay, that could be the difference in the price. And if there isn't a difference in the price, then just stuff that one right off and go for the new one for sure. Now, the one last subset of people out there are people who have a Nintendo Switch original and are thinking about whether they should upgrade to the OLED model. And look, it's a close call. If you're an adult, or you're doing it for an adult, and you do a lot of time in handheld gaming, then it's potentially worth considering, because the OLED model is a lot better for handheld gaming, there's no doubt about it. But they do play exactly the same games, and you may not get if you can sell this for maybe $200, $250 and then you're outlaying over $500 for this, I'm not sure you're going to actually really get $200 of extra value out of having the OLED screen. So the upgrade path is probably not worth it, and you may just want to hang out and see if there's a Nintendo Switch Pro on the horizon which actually does something better with the performance of the actual games it's playing. As for getting a Nintendo Switch at all, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic console with a great list of games, and I've got all of the consoles here in the house, and this is without a doubt the one that gets the most use because I'm a family and the kids get the most out of it, and there's some kick-ass games on there for me as well. Thanks for watching my comparison of the Nintendo Switch console. Sorry I didn't have the light here, I was trying to get it but couldn't get it in time. Make sure you check my other videos, please subscribe so I can give you more of these comparisons and analysis into the future, and otherwise, happy gaming guys.